This week on Constructive Criticism, we say goodbye to Eldritch Moon Standard. We also do something new on the podcast that we haven't done before. We debate. We talk about big mana versus ramp, what makes the decks, what defines the decks, and what we think of the decks. Something very new for the show, so please let us know what you think. Thank you so much, and enjoy the episode.
I got the magic in me. Every time I touch that deck, it turns into gold. Everybody knows I've got the magic in me. When I hit the floor, the spikes come snapping at me. Now everybody wants some presto magic, 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 Spencer Howland, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Constructive Criticism. I'm your host, Spencer, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Casey Bloodworth.
Hey, what's up?
And Michael Hinderocker.
How's it going?
How was Louisville?
It was fun. We had a good time.
Good.
We did some quality losing on day 2, but we had a good time.
Well, I'm glad that you had a good time. Did anyone come up to you in a bar and ask you to guess their age?
No, not this time.
Good. How lucky.
Lucky for them.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening today. We're excited to talk to you about some saying goodbye to Eldritch Moon Standard and saying, hello to an awesome training ground. So we'll get right into the show. The first segment of the show is always the Patreon shoutouts. We don't have any new patrons this week, but if you would like to become a patron of the show, just go to patreon.com/ccmtg, and you can donate any amount that you see fit, starting at $1. Whatever you are willing to donate to the show, we would really appreciate it. It makes it so we can make more awesome content and do different things, and it's really appreciated. We put a lot of hard work into the show, and we hope that that it comes across that way, and that you guys, if you're able to, please go ahead and become a patron. We will never require it, and we hope that you guys know that if you can't afford it, that's totally okay. This show is free for a reason, and we just want to, improve together and with you guys. So, all right. Hashtag Always Improving. Hashtag Always Improving is the first segment of the show every week. It's basically the point of the show. Like, we believe that if you're not getting better, you're getting worse, and we always want to be improving ourselves, and we want to share that with you guys and what we're doing to improve. So, there's two things that I did this week. For me, I played a new deck in Modern. Got into the finals of a PPTQ. Lost to teammate Nick Del Toro. So shout out to Nick. But yeah, I played Nahiri Titan Breach. I would recommend not playing Nahiri in that deck and just playing regular Titan Breach. But other than that, the deck was sweet, and it was nice to that deck was super linear. Yet also I made a lot of mistakes still. I don't know how two of those things can be true, but maybe it's just because it's so linear.
Yeah, where you outsmart yourself.
Yeah, which definitely because Rutscape Shift is like a control deck, and that's what I typically play. Or Jund is like this controlling mid range deck that I typically play. So playing this deck that was just a freight train going down a hill was different for me.
I think a lot of people have had that experience before, though. Sometimes you get a deck where all you really need to do is kind of shut up and get out of the way, and it's hard to do that for 8 rounds in a row. Just I'm just gonna try to kill people on turn 4 with Through the Breach, and if it's good, it's good, and if it's not, it's not.
This in case he has Liliana of the Veil.
Yeah, and you're like, oh man, I could have just won this game real easily if I just played my magic cards.
Also, Through the Breach is an instant, right?
Yes.
Which is a fun fact. But even a funner fact is that neither Alex or Matt told me until after the finals is, oh, by the way, you can Through the Breach your guy at the end of the turn, and it lives. Which I should have known because I've literally played against Through the Breach
It's probably happened to you before.
But
yeah, it doesn't come up that often, but it certainly can come up.
Yeah, but it would have been good against all the blue decks I played against in the top 8.
Oh, sure. Being able to cast it on their end step and then if they counter it, untap and play your Titan.
Specifically, remand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Sure.
blaming Alex and Matt, but really it's my fault for knowing how my deck does. But so yeah, I got to play a new deck in Modern, which was exciting. And then I have a new goal for myself, and this is like a personal goal that I'm going to work really hard at, and that's to that's something I hope actually will be able to transfer really well into Magic. And that's if something isn't impacting my life or hurting people around me or just hurting people in general, not to let it impact me in a negative way. So, like just things that like don't really matter at the end of the day. Like somebody says something annoying or something, just let it go. And hopefully that will like help with any kind of tilting problem that I have in Magic or anything like that. And hopefully it's a goal that I can work on and make strides in. And I'm really excited about it because it just since the week that I started it, I've noticed myself like being happier. So
very cool. For me, it's mostly been trying to hit the books and not get discouraged when it comes to trying to find a deck to play at this Pro Tour. Just being willing to test about anything and keeping an open mind to the decks that I'm playing with and against. Even though some of them, may look or sound questionable, they could end up being very good, or at least have like a nugget of a very good idea in them. So,
okay,
yeah, just doing the work,
just hitting the books, as you said.
Yep, that's what I said.
Speaking of which, what happened to college? You going this semester?
No.
Oh, okay. Good to know. I just thought of that because you said it in the books. And I was like, is Casey going to college this semester? Anyway, Michael, have you improved, or how are you #always improving right now?
I am also trying to figure out what deck to play. We did a lot of playing Magic and talking about Magic today, and I think that was it was really fun. It was good to sort of get a start on thinking about cards you're interested in, decks you're interested in, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I just really enjoy... I think Magic is a lot of fun when you are getting to just sort of bounce ideas off of people who you respect.
Yeah, today was definitely not like a rigorous playtesting day.
Well, we're not really at the stage where we've figured out even what's sort of good enough to I don't know what rigorous playtesting would involve besides smashing our heads together.
Yeah, today was like...
Yeah, it was a lot of goofing off, a lot of hey, this could be a thing.
But that's a lot of fun. I had a really good time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad that you guys enjoyed it. That was, I hope that you two got something out of it and learned things that you didn't know before.
Yeah, definitely.
Every week on the show, we also invite the patrons of the show to participate during the #always improving segment with our Patreon participation. And our patron Ryan asked, just like he wants to know new average Joe strategy. Sorry. Just like average Joe, new standard strategies, like before you even pick up a deck. Picking what to play, what to pick up, avoiding hype. He says, I'm just sitting here do I get a box? Do I get two? Do I get none? Do I buy cards now or do I wait? What decks do I try? Should I try a pro deck? What if I get hated out and I don't have the funds to get a new deck? So what's happening here, all of this string of thoughts, is Ryan's in finding something, one of his, maybe his first major rotation in a while, since he started buying lots of Magic cards. And I think for a lot of people this is really scary. We don't usually touch on finances, and one of the reasons that we don't is because one, as members of the podcast, we don't buy Magic cards because Oasis Games, our sponsor, actually provides Magic cards to us for PPDQs, GPs, bigger events, or bigger being competitive REL events. So we actually don't need to buy Magic cards. But we have all been in the position where we have bought Magic cards.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone who's really tried to play very competitively before has sort of had this experience, right? Oh crap, all my stuff is rotating. How do I decide what to buy again? Because if you're just starting to play at some point, just starting to try to get into things, it sort of happens organically, right? You start with a deck, and there's not necessarily that much thought process in how you're buying things, what you're buying.
Absolutely. So I want to kind of touch on a few things here. Picking what to play. So one of the biggest things that I would suggest for you, Ryan, when you're picking a deck to play in a new format, is do some initial playtesting with friends. That subgroup that we always talked about, surrounding yourself with greatness and getting people with similar-minded people around you. It's pretty important to like get with those people and like test things out before a set comes out. Get an idea of like when you see the set, what you want to play. Now, for a lot of people, Magic is expensive. There's different ways to go about it. For some people, buying lots of boxes is the best way to do it because they want to build lots of decks.
Yeah, or they're liquid enough that that's sort of how they build their collection.
Yes.
And that's perfectly fine. It's an approach you can take.
Yeah.
As long as you aren't focused on trying to get something. You just want to be able to build a deck or decks.
Exactly. So the thing about buying boxes is that's not you singling in on something. So if you're trying to build a collection to trade with, buying boxes can be okay. There's actually websites that you can look at that will tell you the estimated value of a box and whether it's worth opening. So that's something that I would look into. What I did is, for a long time, I would buy one deck, go grind tournaments with it to build up a collection with my winnings and booster packs. What I ended up doing near the end is I just bit the bullet. If I wanted to buy a deck, I bought it. Now, you might not be in that situation, but that's what I did. And that's what I would recommend doing. The reason that I would recommend doing it is a few things. I've talked to a few people about, like, you should never try and build a non-rotating deck at the end of a format because it's not worth it.
Yeah, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's just not a practical idea.
The best thing to do is to buy the best deck possible to start with and then build your collection with the winnings, in my opinion. So just buy the cards you need. Now, if you don't have the funds to do that, you also wouldn't have the funds to buy boxes, right? Because, like, you can probably build a semblance of a deck for the same price that you would buy 2 boxes for.
It depends a little bit on the
definitely.
format. Like, some formats end up getting crazy expensive, like the end of, like, the cons format.
Yeah, we're not going to have fetch lands in this
right.
format.
So, I mean, just all I'm saying is there are some caveats, right? Like, you can definitely end up in formats where it's just, like, some decks are just going to be out of your price range. And that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't have $1,000 to spend on a standard deck. But if like, this last format, most of the decks were in, like, by the end, the 250, 250.
Yeah.
And I think the Emerge decks got even below 200 at some point. So, like,
it actually is below 200 right now.
Yeah, so I think a lot of that stuff, like, it's relatively attainable. You're not necessarily asking for, like, crazy. I mean, Magic is a rather expensive hobby if you want to play competitively, but understanding that, like, it's probably cheaper to just buy a deck.
It's going to be cheaper in the long run to probably just buy the deck you want to play for a little while and then use that deck to acquire store credit or, you know, if as long as you're winning. But
yeah, and go with the deck that you know is practical. Like, if you think that if you have an idea for a deck and you don't really test it, but it has a lot of expensive cards in it, so you think it's probably good for that reason, you know, it's something you could get burned on. But if it's a deck that you've tested or you've seen played in a tournament, you know that it has a power level that you can win matches, you can win tournaments, you can win store credit with, then, yeah, sometimes you just have to go into it. You're never going to open a standard deck opening 3 boxes, right? That just can't happen.
Yeah, especially of one set, right? Because there's so many cards in so many different sets. Now, what I did when I very first started, like, when I owned every deck in standard all the time, the way that I did that was through trading. And so if that's what you do, if you're a trader, you can do that by buying boxes. But just know, like, that's a time investment that you're making. For me, I stopped doing that because I was never going to trade again. That wasn't something I wanted to do. But if you are somebody who likes to trade, buying boxes is a way to get multiple Magic decks.
Yeah, it certainly can be. I haven't actually traded in a super long time. Do people still trade, like, booster packs for value?
Like a booster pack for $3 in cards?
Yeah.
There's no... I mean, maybe. I don't know.
No, because that was something that I used to do. Like, rather than getting store credit, I would take booster packs and then trade them. So I'm sure that you could do a similar thing.
Oh, yeah. People did that at Game Haven all the time.
Yeah, and at Epic Games was actually, like, where it was really popular. But...
That feels like such a bad trade for the person trading cards in general. Like, that's a...
It's the same reason people buy lottery tickets, right? They're not paying... They're getting a better value on it. They could trade their cards into the store,
right,
and get half price, and then buy booster packs, or they can trade them to me for booster packs.
I think it's clear that our opinion of this is that you should buy the singles,
Oh yeah, definitely.
But
it's just more
sorry, that got on a
economical.
tangent. Yeah,
In
definitely
the
buy the
long run,
singles.
though, yeah, it's
Yeah, but if you can buy boxes, but you have to remember that that's a time investment that you're making to trade with those cards if you're planning on opening those booster packs.
I would say like opening boxes is sweet if you have like a group of friends and you're getting some additional value out of it. Like if you're able to
you're
draft
drafting,
them,
yeah.
so you're getting some sort of like entertainment value. But just straight up, it is impossible for the average price of a box to be higher than the price you're paying for it. Like for the average amount that's opened for a set that's in.
Otherwise, the packs just get more expensive.
Or the cards get cheaper, one or the other.
When you
right?
want to buy a box, you want to buy it because you need commons from the set for multiple decks, and you want to liquidate those cards, or not liquidate them, but turn them into other cards. You believe that the value of the rares in the set are going to be tradable for other cards and other sets, and so on and so forth.
I wouldn't even go that far. I would just say if the idea of opening a box is fun, that's fine. But outside of that, like, you are bleeding money.
Right, exactly. You need to realize that you're going to spend $100 or $110, and you're going to get probably $70 to $75 in value. So you have to ask yourself if it's $35 worth of fun.
And if you're saying I'm going to get 75 in value, like actually turning that into you're probably going to take some kind of a hit on turning that into the cards you actually want as well. So
potentially, yeah.
Right. I mean, like that's if we're trading all our commons at 20 cents or whatever. Right. I mean, there's some.
Yeah,
you're falling off even from that level. So
most likely.
Yeah.
This is something we never talk about on this podcast. All right. Thank you so much, and thanks for the question. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. Thank you for the question, Ryan. All right, let's move on to our power rankings. This is brought to you by 5-Color Combo. You can check them out at 5colorcombo.com. You can go to their website, or you can go to the App Store or the Google Play Store to download their app, which I am really excited to be doing. Getting this update coming out. Actually, it just came out. I'm about to buy it. I'm literally buying the Kill Edish update while we're doing this podcast. So what they have is they have an app where you can draft Magic cards. It's called Magic Drafter, and I use it all of the time. In fact, it's what we use for our Crack-a-Pack style stuff for our Pick 2 on limited time only. And they're also coming out with a beta for our Constructed app where you can share and build decks on the app on your phone and save deck lists to your phone and share them easier, which is going to be really, really exciting. I know I'll use that app all the time.
Yeah, it's a sweet one for like just being able to get a feel for like what a draft looks like, because looking at the cards, sometimes it's hard to get a real feel for like what a pack distribution is going to look like.
Yeah.
Sure, sort of like, I mean, just thinking about this set, there's so much stuff that's sort of like for energy cards, right? How high you value cards that are producing energy is very dependent on how much you're getting the payoff cards, and like just flipping through some packs can help you sort of get a sense for that kind of stuff.
So check that out at 5colorcombo.com and download the app on the App Store as well as the Google Play Store. And once again, that app is Magic Drafter. All right, so Power Rankings are all of the rankings since the beginning of Eldritch Moon. So I think we have 6 decks, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. 2 decks with 15 points, 17, and then one with 17, 25, 29, and 145. Ooh, what will be the last deck? So let's kind of just read the decks off. And I'm just going to read the whole list of the top 5, quote unquote, and then we can talk about the format a little bit. Because I think that this format was actually better than the numbers show. By actually a lot, I think.
Yeah, I mean, these numbers look like a degenerate format. I really don't think it was that.
Yeah, so we have Black-Green Delirium with 15 points. We have Gen Delirium with 15 points. We have Green-White Tokens with 17 points. We have Black-White Control with 25 points. We have Temur Emerge with 29 points. And we have Bant Company with 145 points.
It looks bad when you put it on paper, but
it really wasn't like this bad.
It didn't feel that bad. I think a lot of what happened is like other decks kind of came and went. Like they were better positioned at different times. Bant was like always reasonable.
Yeah, and also there's like the before and after the Pro Tour effect, right? Where like some of these decks saw a lot more play, like even like in the top 10 or 20, a lot of these decks saw more play before the Pro Tour, and some of them saw more play after. Some of them were variants of other decks where like Bant Company was really kind of
Right,
consolidated.
the people who were playing Bant still played Bant before and after. The people who were playing other things kind of were like, oh, well, I'm not playing Bant, so I'm going to try this, and then, okay, I'm going to try this.
Yeah, some of these people were playing Bant Company when Rally the Ancestors was the deck. Some people, they were still playing it when Green-White Tokens was the deck, and then they just kept playing it.
Think of it this way. There's 29 deck lists that got points from GPs and SEGs since this format started. 29 decks.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge increase from the last one, right? When Green-White was the deck, there had only been like maybe 18, 17 decks total. That got points.
I have no idea.
And
probably not, because that was just a longer format, right? It was around for longer.
That's
so
true.
Probably more one-off decks.
That might be true. That like decks that earned points might have been larger, but this format didn't feel like the Green-White format to me.
Well, yeah, because it felt like you had more than one reasonable choice at a tournament, right? Where not playing Green-White or a deck that had a very good Green-White matchup just felt like a straight wrong decision.
Claiming you had a very good Green-White matchup with just about anything felt borderline
like a
lie too, because for all the everything, basically every deck in the format was really soft to like 2-drop into Nissa into Gideon, and if the Green-White deck was on the play, nothing.
Oh
really
well,
you could
yeah. So I was
possibly
just
do
gonna
came
say,
close.
like specifically like the version that was like Lamholt into Nissa into Gideon into
Yeah, good
Avacyn.
luck with that.
I don't think anything beat that.
Right, and I mean the Bant decks sort of have their draws like that, but
Do they?
well,
Not like that.
No, I mean not quite like that, but you definitely get banted sometimes, where you're just like you tried to play Magic, and the Bant player was just like, no, not today.
Yeah, I think the other thing is like Bant let you. It felt like you got to make decisions against Bant, which didn't feel true against Green-White. So even though like you lost, you're like, oh yeah, like I guessed wrong. Like he had Reflector Mage and Spell Queller instead of, Bounding Crisis or whatever, or Sylvan, not Sylvan,
Whatever it was, they
Selfless
had
Spirit, or
they had whatever
This,
instead
this
of
felt
whatever.
like a game I was bad at, not a time someone like took me over their knee and just spanked me.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And then there was also things like Temur Emerge and Black Green Delirium were decks that like Black Green Delirium, Temur Emerge, even the Jund Delirium deck, as well as I think Blue Red Spells and Blue Green Crush, for example, were all decks that I think that at different times were like really good in this format.
Yeah, they were all.
And yeah, I included Green Blue Crush in that.
I think actually that deck was really good. It probably we didn't play very many standard tournaments in this format, right? Like we just didn't have many.
Yeah, there just wasn't a lot to do.
But
this is a total of, which by the way, this is gonna make Bant Company even seem more degenerate. This is only a total of what, 6 events?
5.
Yeah.
So it's
Which is why Bant Company, looks so far ahead.
yeah, well, because it was like I said, it was the only deck people played both before and after the Pro Tour, and also it was the most played deck in every event. It actually its conversion percentage from played to points is probably it doesn't account for even half of all the points, only as much as the top 9 decks below it.
Yeah.
So but it was more than half of the meta in most tournaments,
Yeah.
or close to.
Especially early. Like early in the format, it was actually just people playing Bant.
Yeah, or at the RPTQ that I played online, 6 or maybe even 7 of the top 8 decks were banned. But almost the entire tournament, from everybody else that I talked to, they played against Bant 5-6 times in that tournament.
It felt like it was just always the safe choice, right? I never would say Bant was so dominant that you couldn't justify playing anything else. But it was if you couldn't figure out something else that you really liked,
Yeah.
why not, right?
So, is there anything that you guys will miss from this format? So, I actually loved this format, but it's the last standard tournament I played, I did win with Ramp, and won a good amount of money playing Ramp. You won an RPTQ with my Ramp list. I don't know, I ended up loving that deck and playing it most of the format. Well, actually, I played it this entire format. Whereas like last time I like tried Jund and Grixis and different things. Whereas in this one I played Ramp the entire way through.
Sure.
From the GP onward, right?
Yeah, and I mean you definitely played that deck a ton. I think that
I'll miss it. I will miss world breaking my opponents really fast.
I think I'll miss commands at large. I think that like Dromoka's command probably saw a little bit too much play, and like we were all over that card by the end of it. But I think commands in general are sweet.
Yeah, they were. Moto spells are kind of fun, and like we had like charms that we're seeing a lot of play, and now commands, and I don't know. Yeah.
When we were in the charm and command format, like that was exciting because you
gosh.
felt like you had 20 spells in your hand a lot.
Does this format rotate this weekend? So I can play Sarkhan on Wednesday, right?
Yeah, the pre-release is
Okay.
This is a week from now, and then
Yeah,
the release
and then
is 2
you got
weeks from
another
now.
week.
You can play it. You can play like Wednesday night, Friday night, Wednesday night, Friday night.
Cool.
Oh no, not Friday night. Wednesday, Friday, Wednesday. And that's it.
It's not in this format, but I'll obviously miss Sarkhan.
Sure.
Like it's not a card that people played. But I will miss Nissa Vastwood Seer. That card was good in so many decks. For a card that
like all of them?
Yeah, when I saw it spoiled, I was like, this card's terrible. And then I ended up actually playing it at Pro Tour Origins. So that card's been around for a while. It's been in a lot of different archetypes, different strategies even. Like
it's kind of unexciting, but it just like it's very powerful.
Yeah, it's funny when
It's just not flashy, right? You're never
Yeah,
like
it
slam
looked
Nissa,
bad.
win the game.
yeah,
Boom, got him.
It's like when Disdainful Stroke rotated, we were all like, "Oh man, I never realized how much I was gonna miss Disdainful Stroke."
Oh, I knew.
Yeah,
that was
that card was great.
was the glue that held that format together.
I mean, Murderous Cutting kind of the same way, right? Just like you would like, well, I'm going to play at least one Murderous Cut because I'm playing a deck that has black,
Yeah,
right? And you're just like, well, that deck building convention is out the window.
yeah, and Nissa, I feel like I'm gonna feel the same way about. Like I'm gonna be like, I mean, I've already brewed a bunch of decks. I'm like Nissa.
I think Matt was trying to stick Den Protector in something today, and only belatedly like cut it as the last card, and only like an hour later was informed that it had like it's not part of this format.
What's funny is I actually have told him that multiple times about Den Protector, and he still keeps trying to play it.
It just feels like it should be still there.
You
Right?
just play the
It's
new
like
Nissa
just
in that
old
like same
fallback.
slot, right?
Yeah, but like you can't like put it on layaway, right?
Yeah, and just like putting things on layaway, it's sometimes a really bad idea, right? Sometimes you get punished for it, just like with Den Protector. You're like, I'm just going to cast this face down on 3. What could go wrong?
Oh, it died. That never happens.
Yeah.
How about you, Michael? What are you gonna miss?
Well, I don't know. The deck I qualified for this PT with, I can play like a list that's like 4 cards off. So,
Yeah, but obviously it's not Collected Company.
well, I mean, I am really lucky when I play Collected Company. So I'm gonna miss that because now I'm gonna have to find a new card that loves me. So that's disappointing. But I don't know that I'm actually sad that Collected Company is rotating. That card is kind of, it's just like not the most fun Magic card to play with or against, because you end up playing a game where it feels like you can get really screwed by variance either way in like a very, I mean, obviously that's always a thing in Magic, but it just like feels worse when your opponent's like, yep, double Reflector Mage again.
Yeah. What is your favorite deck from this format that you'll like fondly remember?
I mean, Temur Emerge, obviously. I'll fondly remember that deck.
Casey?
I don't know. I don't know that I really had like a favorite deck that I really loved from this format, just because I didn't play it very many times, really. But I would say the deck that I will think of the most fondly is probably Blue-Green Crush, just because it looks like stone cold nonsense, but it's actually like a pretty great deck.
Yeah, I liked at Worlds that Ruben was playing that. It just made me smile a little bit that, like, you know,
Yeah,
like Platinum Pro's like, yep, sleeving up the good old Crush Your Tentacles of the Nissa deck.
Yeah, because when I played against it at the GP, like, I thought it was nonsense. I thought it was like the most terrible deck I'd ever seen. But like he was crushing me with it, like pun intended. But he bent me over a barrel, 2 of me real easy with that deck, and I thought it was just a weird fluke. but people kept like putting up results with the deck, and then I played it a little bit, and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah, I'll miss my ramp deck, but well, I don't know if that's the deck that like I'll probably remember that most fondly. Honestly, I actually thought that the blue-red spells deck was like kind of cool.
It was cool. I just don't know that it was ever like actually that good. Just
Sort
because
of.
it was so soft to bant.
It's sort of a how much do you hate yourself deck, right? It's like, am I cool playing the deck where the card quality is, like slightly above that of my average draft deck? And if that's something you're okay with,
I don't think that's true. I think you guys are giving that deck too hard of a time. What are you excited to see go? This is easy. There's a few things I'm excited to see go. Just because of the long-term hate relationship with this card, Hangerback Walker. Oh, like I don't even care that Reflector Mage knocked it down a peg. I'm so excited that card is gone.
that card wasn't even good for like a year.
I know, but like
At least a year.
yeah,
it was good for like a month.
It was
with
good.
Anafenza.
It was good. It was literally played in the Green White Tokens deck all the time.
Yeah, and it was like one of the worst
It was
cards
the
in that
worst
deck.
card in that deck by so much.
I am not going to miss Hangerback Walker. I'm excited to see it go because, yeah. And then Dromoka's Command, which is weird because I actually think that card is so cool, like really cool, like one of like the coolest cards that they made. It's really efficient. It's great, but it just made so many games unfun.
Well, it was just like so good
Compared to the rest,
certain
compared
times.
to the rest of the spells in the format specifically too.
It's not a very fun mirror card. Like it's not
Yeah,
really that fun to play.
exactly.
Like that we both have Dromoka's Command, but one of us got to play first.
Yeah, because like sometimes you play a pacifist and then your opponent plays a pacifist and then your Dromoka's command their pacifist and then attack them for 4 and the game's over. And like that's not a super great game of Magic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better on the winning end than the losing end.
So what about you? Is there a card that you're excited to see go? Is there a deck you're excited to see go?
I was pretty sick of Collected Company by the end. Just like it's just really good, and like I said before, I don't really like the sort of inherent variance that it really highlights in the game. Because like if you, I was talking to Alex about like playing Abzan Company in Modern. He was describing how he lost his top 8 match where he like over 3 Collected Companies hit like Birds of Paradise, nothing Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch. It's like it's just not like when it's good it feels stupid, and when it's bad you feel stupid. So it's like not the most fun Magic card.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I will be very glad to see it go because I will never be tempted to play it again. And that card, like, because the decks that played it were oftentimes very powerful. So I found myself playing Collected Company way more than I would have liked to. Just because in testing it was always so great, and then in tournaments it was hit the other side of variance. Or even when you were running okay, it just felt random. You're like, let's spin the wheel, let's see if I can win this game.
This got especially highlighted to me when Spell Queller got printed, and you'd have these stupid situations where like you can either Spell Queller the spell or Reflector Mage. They play creature, right? And you're like, okay, so I can either Spell Queller this or Reflector Mage it. And you're just like, well, let's see. Which one do I think it's going to be based on exactly 0 information? Or like I drew one of each of them, so
Yeah,
which
let's
am I
flip a
choosing?
coin.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just straight nonsense.
Actually, so both of you are really excited to see Collected Company go.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that card was also, by the end of the format, getting a little bit Green Sun Zenith-y, where you were just sort of like, you start seeing convergence in terms of what people want to play with. Like, it starts squeezing out cards that I think are actually pretty good because they don't work that well with Collected Company.
Sure. What do you wish you would have tried? Blue-Green Crush.
Yeah, I definitely regret not playing that deck at least like once in a tournament or whatever.
The other one for me is, there just weren't enough standard tournaments. Here's the thing: is I actually think this format was sweet, right? Like I'm looking at this list of decks, just like going down it, and I'm thinking like, just like I wish I would have tried Cat Pack. Like what?
Yeah, just because like the deck it looks so bad, right? But it was still interesting.
I played Abzan Control in a video with Matt, and it was sweet, and I wish I would have gotten to play it in a tournament. Blue-Green Crush, I wish that I would have gotten to play that. There's like lots of decks. I honestly didn't get any games with Temur Emerge. Luckily, there's like a whole nother year of that deck, so...
Yeah, there were like at least 10 decks that I felt like were all completely viable. The deck is very cool, or the format was very cool as far as the decks you could play. Band Company was like definitely overrepresented in the results, but it certainly didn't feel like a format that was hostile to other decks.
Yeah, Michael.
I just wish there would have been a few more events of the format, basically. Kind of same page as you guys. I liked the decks I ended up playing. I mean, I certainly felt like I had a good time with most of the stuff I tried, and I tried a bunch of different decks. I mean, I think I only played 3 events, and I played Jund Delirium in 1. I played Temur Emerge in 1, and I played Bant Human Company in 1. I thought all were, like, pretty interesting games with all of them for the most part, but, like, I would have liked to just get a couple more events because I felt like I didn't have that good a handle on exactly like what was
it was
great.
gone before it started.
Yeah.
Is what it felt.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. And if you anyway, I was going to say something ridiculous. What was the worst deck that people thought was good? So what is Spencer's Black Red Dragons of this format?
So the worst deck people thought was good was definitely White Black Control, because that deck was like really bad. But Owen Turtenwald told everybody it was good, which was like pretty clever on his part because he got a lot of people playing it. But the deck was crazy bad.
Yeah, I agree. I think that deck is terrible.
Yeah, whoever got fooled into winning a Pro Tour with it is such a sucker.
Yeah, it was actually funny. After the Pro Tour, he was like, I don't know how I won. Like, this deck is bad.
Yeah, I had no good matchups. I thought people would play like these weird decks that had good Bad Company matchups, but nobody played these decks, and this deck is terrible.
Yeah, he's like, don't play this.
He was really good at winning dice rolls and then playing Liliana on the play. And, like, if you just have removal spells and you play Liliana going first, there's a really big chance that you just win with an ultimate. And pretty much every game I saw him play, he won with a Liliana ultimate. So I think, like, if you're just going first and playing Liliana, that's something, right?
Yeah,
like
that deck was crazy bad.
It has ways to win, but I think generally, like, the creatureless or close to creatureless Liliana deck is just, like,
yeah.
Liliana's a lot better if her second ability has text.
Is it good against Black Green Delirium? No. Is it good against Jund Delirium? No. Is it good against Green White Tokens?
I very much doubt it.
It's probably not that bad. I mean,
I think that's probably its only good matchup in the decks we listed.
I think all these matchups are good if you
before. Like, I don't Liliana helped it that much.
If you slam Liliana on turn 3 going first, I think all those matchups are fine. If you don't, I think they're all probably pretty bad. That's like he was winning every game he did that and losing every single game he didn't. That was the plan.
All right. Anyway, so we all agreed that White Black was the worst deck that people thought was good.
Did anyone actually think it was good though?
Yes,
yeah.
tons of people. Also, blue red spells might have been up there. Like, that deck was sweet, but I don't know that it was ever actually that good.
No one actually thought that. Like, I don't think I ever talked to anyone who thought either of those decks was great.
I thought that deck was good.
It was very cool. I don't know that it was good at all.
I mean, Thermal Alchemist is just...
It's
man,
sweet.
You haven't lived until you've run double Thermal Alchemist, because it's just as dumb as it sounds.
So what was the best deck?
Probably either Temur Emerge or, like, the Sultai Emerge deck. I feel like that deck never really got completely fleshed out.
I mean, not saying Bant Company feels really disingenuous. It feels
I think it was Bant Company.
It feels like I'm being really anti-results oriented, and I can't really come up with a good reason to do so. Like I don't think it was the only good deck, and I don't think it was the best deck by a huge margin. But I think, like, if you put a gun to my head and said I was playing for my life,
You'd want that to be as much as a coin flip as possible?
No, I know that Collected Company loves me, so it would be fine.
No, I think it's Bant Company.
And frankly, yeah, if I was playing with a gun to my head, a coin flip might be good, because, like, probably wouldn't play that well.
To be fair, though, I think that in the last, couple events, our team had a pretty good run with green red ramp. That's all I'm saying. But no, I think it was Bant Company. What would you play a similar format to this one again? The answer is yeah. I think it's a clear yeah for me. I wish that I would have gotten more of this format. Like I said, I really wanted to try Green Blue Crush. There are so many decks I wish that I would have gotten to try. This standard format was so short. And when I think about it, they're like, are all of these kind of formats going to be really short now?
I think it seems that way. But maybe it's like kind of for the best. I don't know. Maybe it should be moved up a little bit so like it starts earlier. Because it felt like we had the Shadows format for a long time.
It literally felt like forever.
So I think it had a lot to do
Probably
with
wasn't.
like GP scheduling. There was only like one standard GP after the Pro Tour, and then there were no more. So I think like it was less about like it actually being short and more about there just being no
Here's the
big
other
time
problem,
events to
is
play.
that because this format only lasted 2 or 3 months, it was like 2.5 months, right? The players at local events just stopped playing the format because the format was rotating, and it's like it's like it's an inherent problem that happens every format, and I always get mad. I'm like, so like I'll go to standard events and they won't fire, and I'm like, this is stupid. Like, this format is great, you should be playing it and enjoying Magic. People are like, oh, there's no value, like I'm not gonna get like. And I encourage all of our listeners not to be those people, but that's a real problem. And the problem is like, because this format it was so short, it just happened right away.
Yeah, I that definitely is an issue, and I guess what I would say was sweet about this format was that it felt like it was changing, sort of throughout its life. Where like sometimes formats just get solved really fast, and you just spend months trying to figure out how to beat a deck that you can't really beat.
Yeah, green-white tokens.
Right, you're just like, oh well, we tried a lot of things, and none of them
came up
worked,
short.
even sort of. So I like that. Like there was a lot of growth in the format, but when the format is so short, it's sort of disappointing because you don't get to see things really get fully fleshed out. Like, it's unusual for decks at Worlds to be, like, changing a lot from what you've seen. And you were still seeing, like, big splits and dichotomies in how to build things in, like, literally the last event of a format, right?
We saw, like, a few different
like, the Emrakul decks, right, were all kind of all over the place. And, like, there were, like, 2 real schools of thought on how to build that. And it's just interesting and unusual to see decks be so unsolved. Yeah. This late.
I agree. I would play a similar format to this one. And it was such a breath of fresh air after that green-white format. It's so funny that, like, there's a lot of people that really hate Bad Company, and they're, like, really excited to see Bad Company go. But I think that was the problem with the format, in all honesty, was people, like, being like, well, I'm not playing because there's, like, Bad Company's the best deck. And I just don't think... I mean, it was the best deck, but I just don't think that they got to experience, like, the sweetness of this format. This is like up there in my standard formats, whereas if you had asked me 4 months ago, I'd been like, no, this is literally one of the 3 worst standard formats I've ever been in.
So, like, it got a little bit repetitive, but I really liked the deck green white tokens. I liked like playing that mirror a lot. So I probably liked that format a little bit more. But also, like, this one, I just never really felt like I got into a groove with it, so it's very possible that I would have liked it more had I played it more, or it's possible that we all would have hated it if we'd played it more.
I think with a few more big events, like, there just would have been more reason to prep harder. Like, when you get to a point where you're just like, well, okay, I play this RPTQ or whatever, and then it's just like, I am literally not going to play standard until it rotates, because I'm not playing in a FNM or whatever. It's just like what's the point in?
I don't even remember.
I played Bant Humans.
Okay.
I like that deck pretty well, but I played it, cold, and chose it about 5 minutes before we walked out the door, then grabbed all the cards and just stuck them in sleeves. Like, there's just not a lot of incentive to work on formats if you don't have events you want to play, right? And that's sort of what happened with this one. There weren't very many large events for whatever reason.
I'm about to be a hashtag MTG dad, so those Wednesday night tournaments are going to be really important to me.
Sure.
Yeah, I would. So you actually wouldn't try this format, like a similar format again?
Well, I mean, probably wouldn't have a choice, right? So, like, if I'd either not play Magic, if this is the same format, like, I'd either not play Magic or I'd play it. So,
well, would you want to?
Probably, because, like I said, I don't feel like it was completely fleshed out. So, yeah, I'd want to continue playing it because
if I gave you the option that you could extend this format a month and, like, push all the events out. You extend this format a month and add, like, a couple, like, a GP in Salt Lake and a GP in Las Vegas. And you could, like, would you accept that over getting Kaladesh?
No, because I think Kaladesh is sweet. But I think that if it were...
I actually would snap take it.
Oh, like, it's...
The fact that
it's bittersweet,
be fine either way, like that I don't really have that much of an opinion about it, and I think Kaladesh is a good set from what we've seen so far and we've looked at, like, that says a lot about I think this last format being pretty good. Like the fact that Casey isn't instantly just like, no way. Sort of, I mean, yeah, it's like a format I certainly wouldn't mind getting to have played a little bit more of.
Cool. All right, well, that's it, guys. I'm sure some people are surprised that we just didn't talk about how great Band Company was. I think the deck was good. I think it was the best deck, but I just don't think we got enough of this format with only 5 events. Like, obviously, there was Worlds, and there was
the Pro Tour.
And there was the Pro Tour, and there was an Invitational, right?
Yeah.
And none of those are included in the rankings just because of like the nature of those tournaments. But yeah, so like there was multiple ways to build Bant Company, right? There was the human version, the non-human version. There was, many different styles. For example, of like red-green ramp. There was people at the GPs playing the Reed Duke version. The Japanese people did well at the Pro Tour with it. There was, the version that we played. There was Green-Blue Crush was a ramp deck. There was Temur Emerge. There was, and like at the Pro Tour, there was 2 different versions that like got smashed together into like the version that you played to qualify for the Pro Tour. Like, I'm not like this format was way sweeter than people gave it credit for, just because of the number of people that played Bant Company, and honestly, that's a shame because. There's a chance that something like green-white tokens would have come out and like actually been good against a lot of these decks if people had been given a reason to play it, or maybe like somebody flushes out like a really good Jund version of the Black Green Delirium deck where they get to do whatever. So I don't know. That's just me rambling off just random thoughts, but that's why we didn't talk about Band Company, because I really don't think Band Company was the story. I think that all of the sweet different decks, like the Delirium decks and the Emerge deck and, all of these different Emrakul decks, the different ways to build everything, is really more of a story.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of meat left on the bone, right? That's kind of the takeaway from this format, is that there's a lot left that kind of, a lot of stones left unturned, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, actually, it reminds me of the format after Jace and...
Stoneforge got banned?
Yeah, Jason Stoneforge got banned, where I loved that format, and I was really sad to see it go.
Yeah, that was before my time, so I have no opinion on that.
I think just generally, so Eldritch Moon was kind of a funny set in that, so you get like Spell Queller, right, which is really good against sort of the green-white style decks that people have been playing, and it just makes for a really obvious inclusion in Band Company. So you get Band Company getting this like awesome addition right off the bat, but Eldritch Moon was a really powerful set and had a lot of sort of unusual cards and things that were hard to figure out exactly how they should like fit together, and what am I really trying to do with this stuff, and how does it all work. And it's just not that often that you look at a set and you're like, well, I mean, I think these cards are good, but I'm not really sure how many of this I want to play and how many of this I want to play and how they all fit together. And
yeah,
it's interesting.
All right, so let's move on to our training grounds. So this week, this training grounds is brought to you by Oasis Games. You can check them out at oasisgamesslc.com. You can get 15% off your first order by using code CCMTG at checkout. And you can get 4% off every order by using code Would That Be Good at checkout. All right, so this week we're going to talk about some deck building. We're going to talk about ramp versus big mana and some of the differences. So we got a list of kind of the decks that fall into these categories that people might remember or might have tried. I'm gonna just put all of the links to all the decks in the show notes, and we can kind of talk about them. So, Ali Altrazi is a historical big mana guy. Big mana decks. He does play a lot of ramp decks too, but historically he is big mana all the way. So obviously, Casey, a deck I picked of all is to showcase big mana.
The 5-color deck from Return to Ravnica?
Oh yeah, 1 Angel of Serenity, 1 Gristlebrand, 4th Ragtusk, 1 Rook Primal Hunter, 1 Nuka-Bolas Planeswalker, 1 Tamio the Moonsage, 1 Vraska, 2 Abrupt Decay, 2 Chromatic Lantern, 1 Door to Nothingness, 4 Farseek, 3 Lingering Souls, 1 Oblivion Ring, 2 Rakdos Return, 2 Ranger's Path, 3 Sphinx Revelation, 4 Supreme Verdict, just every land in existence.
Yeah, this was the weirdest deck ever. Because when you were doing it with this deck, you were really doing it. When you were like Farseek, Ranger's Path,
I have a
Rakdos
100% win percentage with this deck.
All right. That's fun.
Yeah. I actually believe our team at that event had a 100% win percentage with the deck.
Sweet.
So is that only possible if you intentionally draw?
No,
If
we
you split?
literally, none of us lost a match.
What event are you playing where no one wins?
So there was 4 of us on the deck. I 0-3'd the draft. Quentin 1-2'd the draft.
Oh, okay. Okay, so sorry.
So it was a multi-format
It's an
event.
I was
invitational.
confused
And
about.
Alex won the event with the deck.
Okay, I was just confused about how you could possibly have everyone go undefeated and none of you play each
Yeah,
other.
so
Okay.
it was a multi-format event.
that
I
makes
actually
more
don't think
sense.
any of us lost a match with the deck. Besides the deck, which Casey has a strong opinion about. Why is so this deck has ramp spells, right? It has Farseek and Ranger's Path and Chromatic Lantern. Why isn't this a ramp deck?
Well, because a lot of times in the medium terms of the game, like you're ramping into sometimes Crystal Brand, but mostly Tameo, right? A 5-mana spell that's going to stabilize the board, and Supreme Verdicts. And this deck is very much a control deck. It's interacting on most phases of the game. Most of your spells are interactive. Lingering Souls is, a chum blocking wonderkin. And, like, it's a win con, but it's not something that you're ramping into, right? It's just good value in the deck. Thrag Tusk was just a pillar of that format, and being able to Farseek into it to get to a turn earlier or whatever was exactly what you were looking for. So this deck was playing quite a bit in the 5 to 7 mana space, which is not really what you think of in traditional ramp decks.
Yeah, it's a lot of 5 drops, and honestly, like, it wasn't ramping as much as it was like it's just big stuff.
Well, I think about playing up the curve. Like in a deck like this, you're not trying to go like 2-4-7 or whatever.
Right.
You're just kind of like fixing your mana by playing these things, and then like one of the, you sort of get in like a 5-color deck like this, you're sort of getting like you're getting ramped, but you're also fixing your mana at the same time. So you sort of get this weird combination effect where like you're just playing the spells that you're able to play, and all of a sudden the next spell that you can play is Gristlebrand, and it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess I ramped into this, but like all I was trying to do was not have only green lands. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
you found the secret there, Michael. If you look at the cards in the deck, at the point of the deck, the ramp spells were not to ramp you. It was a bonus that they ramped you. Farseek was in a format with Shocklands, so it was Farseeking you to fix your mana. Chromatic Lantern literally gave you perfect mana, and then Ranger's Path gave you perfect mana also, basically all of the time, because it got you to all 5 colors every time you cast it.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that a deck could play Angel of Serenity, Grizzlebrand, and like Nicol Bolas and Garruk Primal Hunter, which costs green, like,
Yeah.
the deck is the work of a madman, right?
It's an unusual
It's
one.
a thing of beauty.
So like you have to have some way to make that work. Even if you like, there's not a deck that would just naturally have that kind of mana. So playing
Contraire, sir. We could bring up another big mana deck called Cruel Control, 5-color Cruel Control.
that format was more like just insanely slow though. So you would just play your 10 lands and it was whatever. You would mostly get there.
It also had Reflecting Pool,
And Vivid Lands.
Vivid Lands, yeah.
So you played like 10 5-color lands or whatever in the deck, but you were just playing them one at a time, real casual, like Mold Driftering and ugh.
Yeah.
Sounds like one of your favorite formats of all time.
It's a
Casey.
molasses format.
Slow.
Let's move on to another deck that is always called a ramp deck, and it's just not true about it. Are we going to blow some people's minds? Green, red, Tron.
Yeah, so this deck kind of feels like a ramp deck because it casts very expensive spells quickly, but it's not.
It's not even at all a ramp deck.
Right. Back in the day, some versions played Explore, which I guess made it a ramp deck, but
Is that true? Did that make it a ramp deck?
no.
So I would argue that this is a ramp deck. What makes it not a ramp deck?
What makes it a ramp deck? This is an interesting conversation.
That you are playing spells with the express intent of making in this case, you're making single lands make more mana, but all of your spheres and stars and maps.
How is this more of a? How is the other deck a big mana deck and this is a ramp deck? You're doing the same thing that the other deck is doing. So
because you're not playing spells up the curve at varied mana costs, you're not playing the board.
But you're not. So you're not.
You're playing a pretty uninteractive game.
Is that true with this deck?
Yes.
I feel like this deck is extremely interactive.
So I think it's a land destruction deck. Like, you're mostly just trying to prevent your opponent from casting spells, which is sort of interactive.
I mean,
you're disrupting your opponent heavily.
In the most technical sense of that word.
Yeah, like...
You're wanting the interaction to be a one-way street.
Yeah, this deck has always felt like colorless control to me.
I just don't even know that you can call this a control deck. You're just playing planeswalkers, and that's either a good plan or it's not a good plan.
Huh, interesting.
I mean, pretty much every game I've ever played with or against Tron felt like it was decided before we started.
I think this is why a lot of people have a hard time with this. Because to me, when I look at this deck, I see just a bunch of big mana stuff and lands that, like when I think of... I see this deck in the same vein that I see Eldrazi and Legacy. Like, those decks are these big mana decks that, like, play Eldrazi lands... Because your lands tap for 2 mana, does that automatically make you a ramp deck?
I don't think these decks are that similar.
What is the difference?
That
because this one has a deck building cost?
No, I would say more because
it's a 5-color deck.
Because you're just not playing interactive games with this deck. You're almost certainly set up to. I mean, just like. How many games have you played against Tron where you feel like it came down a lot to what one player or the other did?
So that doesn't really matter.
I don't know that. So I think you just have a different definition of ramp because, like, you think that every ramp deck is just this linear deck that makes it so that the other person doesn't matter.
Essentially, they're like combo decks.
I see. All right, so that's what the difference is here. This isn't a ramp deck. It's these Ancient Tomb, City of Trader, Eldrazi Temple, Mistress like Ayavugan decks. They're also big mana decks. I see them as this, like, it's just, they just cast big things. There's, the only difference here is that there's a deck building cost. I don't see, just because a deck isn't interactive doesn't make it a ramp deck. I mean, its game plan isn't to ramp you into anything. Your deck building, you have a deck building cost, but it isn't a ramp deck. I don't know how to explain this.
Yeah,
which is crazy because that's the point of the podcast.
It's kind of weird. I see how people get stuck on this. I also wouldn't consider it a ramp deck, but sometimes it's just hard to explain.
Yeah, I think that you're putting a stigma on ramp decks.
Definitely, this to me very much resembles like a standard ramp deck.
Okay,
this is very very similar to like the ramp deck that you play.
Let's move on to. I'm going to ask you a question about this deck then. What about Temur Emerge? So that's another deck that we have listed as a big mana deck. This one's by Michael Hinderrocker. So it's got 1 Sidisi's Faithful, 4 Primal Druid, 2 Pilgrim's Eye, 2 Ishkana, 3 Retrogryph, 2 Elder Deep Fiend, 3 Emrakul the Promised End, 2 Traverse, 4 Vessel, 3 Gather the Pack, 4 Grapple with the Past, 4 Kozilek's Turn, 4 Nissa's Pilgrimage.
And a bunch of lands.
And then a sideboard of cards that Michael brought with him.
Yeah, I mean, that's
what that looks like, actually.
It's pretty much what it felt like when I was playing it, too. I'm not going to argue with you there. So, like, my feeling in comparing this deck to Tron is this deck is a lot more about playing to the board and adjusting to what your opponent is doing.
This deck is extremely uninteractive, right? Like, your goal is to like play an Emrakul, be the best Emrakul deck, and then that's it.
Plenty of games go like that. But my experience both watching, playing, and playing against Tron has just been that, like, you're pretty locked into your game plan.
I think that you can be a linear deck and not be a ramp deck. I think Tron is a linear big mana deck, but that's not the same thing as being a ramp deck. So
then what changes that?
So let's talk about the ramp decks that I have listed really quick. So one of the things is the thing that you mentioned, which is we're going to pull up Casey's list from the RPTQ. We have 4 Deathcap Cultivators, 3 Dragonlord Tarkas, 1 Emrakul, 1 Hedron Crawler. This list makes me cringe. Only because we built it so wrong. 2 Nissa, 1 Ulamog, 4 Worldbreaker, 3 Chandra, 1 Hedron Archive, 4 Explosive Vegetation, 4 Incendiary Flow, 4 Nissa's Pilgrimage, 3 Oath of Nissa, and lands. So one of the major things that you'll see here is its game plan is to put you in a position with, you go 2, 4, 7, right? Kind of what you talked about.
Right.
Now, your argument with Green or Tron is similar, that you go land, land, land 7.
I mean, it doesn't always happen that way, but that's how you draw it up.
So,
or even better, like land, egg, land, Sylvan Scrying, whatever, right? Like, so I get how it kind of feels similar.
So why to you is Tron not a ramp deck?
I think just because of the way that it progresses and what you do when you get there, kind of. It uses ramp spells more as a way to stabilize, or not ramp spells.
What is a ramp spell?
Yeah, sorry. Tron does not use ramp. Like, a ramp deck uses ramp spells as a way to progress into your game plan, right? Like, you're just
we're actually
going to
get into the reason later in the show, but I'm interested to hear you guys.
Tron is getting up in its mana mostly as a way to stabilize the game, as a way to like control what's happening. Where with the ramp deck, like for example, the one that I played. It has, like, some of your big end stuff is disruptive, but mostly it just kills them, right? Like, for the most part, Ulamog could not Vindicate, and it would probably be the same card most of the time, just because they can't, like,
I'd say
get attacked by
Karn and Worldbreaker are remarkably similar.
Yeah, let's talk about a few other things really quick. That I want to cover the rest of the decks, and then we actually have show notes for the discussion. We have Red Green Devotion is another ramp deck. This one is just so rampy. So the one that I have that you guys will be able to see is an article by Martin Yuza, where he goes over Thomas Hendrick's 7th place deck list, as well as Andrei Strosky's 3rd place deck list, and some of the differences that you'll see in some of those Green Red Devotion decks. And we're going to look at specifically, for example, Thomas's list, which had 2 Xenagos, 4 Elvish Mystic, 4 Voyaging Satyr, 4 Sylvan Caryatid, 4 Courser of Krufix, 2 Shaman of the Forgotten Ways, 4 Pelucranos, 4 Whisperwood Elementor, 4 Genesis Hydra, 1 Arbor Colossus, 3 Tarka Worldbreaker, and 1 Hornet Queen. And then Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx, and a bunch of different lands. So, one of the things that you'll see here is the creature ramp, right?
Right.
Now, you might be asking yourself, well, does that make Elves a ramp deck? No. The difference there is that it's trying to play big things. And it's trying to ramp you into big things to get you to the late game before your opponent. Now, that is true of Tron also.
Sure.
Important to note there. And this is why I think this is one of those deck building things that we get to talk about. The next deck that we want to... And so keep that in mind when we get to the show, the part of the show. Next up we have Valakt Ramp. This deck is just the rampiest ramp deck. So we have 3 Avenger of Zendikar, 4 Overgrown Battlement, 4 Primeval Titan, 3 Colony Heart Expedition, 1 Harrow, 4 Lightning Bolt, 4 Summoning Trap, 4 Cultivate, 4 Explorer, 1 Pyroclasm, 28 lands, including 11 mountains and 4 Volakits, as well as Terramorphic Expanses and Evolving Wilds, 4 of each of those. Yeah, lots of tap lands for you, Casey.
That's a lot. It's like 9.
It's more than that. There's 12 tap lands in this deck.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I didn't. For some reason, I thought it was only 1 Terramorphic Expanse. That's so many. I guess you're playing like 100 lands, so it's whatever.
Yeah, you're playing 20 lands. And a lot of them are coming off of like Explorers, so it's going to be okay. But this is a very rampy deck, right? This actually, that's all it does. It doesn't actually do anything else.
I mean, there are at least 4 spells in that deck that don't ramp you, and I think they're all named Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, well, and Avenger of Zendikar, right? That's
sure. I mean,
it just wants you to ramp.
That's
after
just
you
a
play.
card that you can't play without playing a deck of all ramp spells.
Yeah. And then the last deck that we're going to look at is in actually the same format, and that's Eldrazi Ramp. This deck has 2 Wall of Tangle Chords, 4 Drago Tree Speaker, 4 Overgrown Battlement, 4 Primeval Titan, a Viridian Corruptor, an Emrakul, Aeon's Torrent, 4 Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, 4 Summoning Trap, 4 Explorer, 2 Green Sun Zenith, 4 Growth Spasm. 26 lands, with them being Eldrazi, with some Eldrazi Temples and an Eye of Ugin. So, here is what we're going to talk about. What makes a deck, quote, ramp? And the important thing here is the difference in bridge spells. That is the difference between a ramp deck and a big mana deck, in my opinion. ramp decks bridge the gap with ramp spells, whereas big mana decks don't. There's actually no bridge in Green Red Tron.
Right, because, I mean, just between the lands and the stars and the sphere
also,
and
like,
the map.
Tron does so much tutoring that, like, it feels very automatic, right? Where, like,
Yes.
with a lot of ramp decks, you're usually, like, playing off the top more or
I
less.
would just say that,
really
like,
quick,
Expedition
before
map...
we get too far down this
Sure.
road. Michael, what is a bridge spell?
So it's like you sort of have your turn 1 or 2 plays, right? You have things that you're doing really early in the game, and then you have something that you're trying to cast that you're expecting to, be relevant or good enough to win you the game or whatever, but you don't... So, you have Primal Druid and you have Emrakul, and you're saying, okay, well, I have my Primal Druid in play. What happens in this game from this point to get me to the spot where I'm not dead when I cast Emrakul?
You're building a bridge to the point of Emrakul.
Sure. Or whatever, 7, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana thing you want to cast.
And this is actually why I and Casey don't consider Green Red Tron a ramp deck. It doesn't actually have bridge spells. Like, it's not building a bridge. Like, it doesn't bridge. It just does it.
I mean, I would consider map and scrying bridge spells. They're just atypical ones because of what Tron lands let you do.
Okay. So, but they don't ramp you. Like, they don't...
They do.
Well...
Claiming that those don't ramp you is just disingenuous. They don't put more lands into play, but they absolutely ramp you.
So they accelerate you, but it feels more like...
I mean...
It feels more like smoothing out your draw than it does
that's
ramping
how
to
I
me.
feel, too. It's like, you have this...
But maybe it's like... Maybe I'm just thinking about it the wrong way because I don't know.
I mean, just saying that those aren't ramp spells
I
is
think
like...
This is the most interesting... Like, this is what happens when... This is how we do the podcast. But I am very interested that you find this to be a ramp deck. And I think that you find it to be a ramp deck because of your opinions of ramp deck and not because of the deck building cost behind playing a ramp deck.
So, I mean, I think that part of, like, these are... So, if you're playing, like, Blue Tron, that is a big mana deck.
What is the difference?
You are playing Sylvan Scryings and a ton of stars to draw your lands.
Okay, I'm interested. Let's pull up a...
In the Blue Tron lists, you're usually playing map, and I think that's just a cost of playing Tron. Like, you're not going to play Tron with
you
no
just have
ways.
to. And then you're playing, like, scry cards that scry.
Right, so they're generally playing, like, Condescends and Remands and stuff like that.
Yeah, let's pull up a...
But that deck is much more interactive in terms of what it's trying to do, like, in terms of fighting its opponent.
That deck also plays Talisman of Progress.
Sure. But I think of
this
that
one
as...
actually has Solemn Slimaracum in it.
That deck, to me, is trying to, like... When I'm thinking about how that deck wants to curve, that deck looks like it's a lot more likely to curve like 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. Where with Tron, you are really trying to go like 1, 2, 7.
It's interesting because I think that just because it's a blue deck, you automatically
the spells are more interactive.
Yeah, I think you just have it like you just associate green cards with ramp, so that's why you believe it's a ramp deck.
No, but I mean, you're playing Chromatic Sphere and Star, you're playing Ancient Stirrings, which is sort of in that same vein. I mean, it's like a split card, so it's better than any of the other ones, but it's sort of the same idea. The blue deck, you're playing a bunch of Remands and Condescends, and I mean, I think primarily that's what makes Blue Tron a lot worse, that you're like... You're kind of trying to, instead of just being a pure ramp deck, you're sort of trying to play this weird, like, fair game, too, that just isn't as good as Turn 3 Karn.
What makes Mono Blue Tron worse, actually, is you have almost all the same matchups as Green Red Tron, but you're a huge underdog in the mirror, because Green Red Tron is so good at blowing up lands.
Well, because they're probably a lot better at getting to 7 mana before you, right? I mean, you're still in the Remand Condescend part of the game, and they're in the, World Breaker you part of the game.
Right, exactly. Even before World Breaker, though, that was the case, just because...
Well, sure,
it was still...
it
was just a deck that got Tron faster, and
right. I mean,
once you start blowing up lands, like, it's really tough to win.
You're playing 12 payoff cards. I guess Ugin probably isn't that good in the mirror, but, like, 12-ish payoff cards plus Sanctums, and I guess at that point you were playing I, too, so actually getting to, like, 15 first or whatever is more important.
When you are building a big mana deck, though, what kind of attributes are you looking for in that deck? So, for example, like the Ali Emrakul deck, that Sultai Emrakul deck, for example, that was a big mana deck, right? That he was just playing in standard.
Right. Was he playing any ramp spells in that, or was he just playing a bunch of card types?
He was playing Hedron Archives.
Right, but those were sort of... those are always kind of split cards, right? Like in those kind of decks, you need just extra cards.
What makes that happen for you?
So I think about trying to play to the board. Like when I'm looking at ramp decks, they're mostly about sort of ignoring what your opponent is doing, and if your sort of end game plan is good against what's happening on their side, you're typically going to win. And big mana decks typically can't afford to ignore what's happening on the board quite as much, because they're not getting to the top end quite as fast, because a lot of the time they're actually just playing less. I mean, either no ramp spells or less ways to ramp. Like his deck in particular.
I think there are a few things that, like, when you look at his deck that you think about. For example, Sylvan Advocate is this bridge spell that you can play in a big mana deck because you actually want to get to 6 lands, right?
Right.
You can also play that in a ramp deck if you wanted to. Probably not fulfilling the same needs that you have. Whereas in a big mana deck, something like Sylvan Advocate is like, no, I just want to get to 6 lands. So this makes my big mana, like, it makes me be okay with this card as a bridge spell.
Some percentage of the time, you're actually just going to win games with Sylvan Advocate in a deck like Ali's, where, like, if you're playing a ramp deck, you're probably not playing like a bunch of Grasp of Darknesses, and you're just not going to win a game with a 4/5 Sylvan Advocate.
Yeah, there's nothing
right?
that's going to get out of your way with your Sylvan Advocate.
If we just take like the ramp list that Casey played, and you just stick Sylvan Advocates in it, you're going to win like 0.5% or less of your games by attacking your opponent with Sylvan Advocates that wouldn't have been better as literally anything else.
Yeah, exactly. And like in the previous season, before Shadows, the ramp decks usually played Sylvan Advocate, just because it was kind of one of the bigger payoffs you could really have for even just having lands in play. It kind of served dual function. But typically in a deck like this, a 4/5 is just, it's so much smaller than what you're getting out of other, like, your payoffs for ramp, right? Where in a deck that just wants to take advantage of having more mana, it's a very good card.
Well, the flip side, though, is that you also don't have to pay the price to be a real ramp deck, right? You're not playing any Nissa's Pilgrimages. You're playing like 2 Hedron Archives and saying, yeah, on turn 11, sometimes I'm going to cast an Emrakul. Right? So you don't have to play a bunch of explosive vegetations. You get to play more cards that affect the board, and that's sort of like could point you in one direction or the other, right? I mean, if you think like that explosive vegetation is great in the format, then obviously that's not really a huge deck building cost to you anymore, but it's interesting to sort of get that dichotomy.
What makes a ramp deck to each of us? Because apparently we have different opinions. For me, in order to be a ramp deck, you have to be... There's a few things that have to happen. You have to be about getting to a certain point of the game, and that's all that matters to you. As well as you need to be trying to do it at a speed that negates other parts of the format. I'm going to read a deck list really quick, and I want to know people's opinions of this, because Matt and I have talked about this deck a lot, because I think this is going to explain my thoughts on ramp versus big mana really well. So the deck we're going to look at is Wolfrun Ramp by Brian Kibler and Paulo Victor Damarosa. They took 1st and 2nd at Pro Tour Honolulu with it. It is 3 Solemn Simulacrum, 1 Acidic Slime, 1 Birds of Paradise, 4 Huntmaster of the Fells, 2 Inferno Titan, 4 Primeval Titan, 1 Throne the Last Troll, 1 Whip Flare, 3 Slagstorm, 4 Rampant Growth, 2 Green Sun Zenith, 4 Galvanic Blast, 4 Sphere of the Suns, 25 lands. Casey, what would you qualify this deck as?
So this deck's kind of interesting because I think looking at it on paper, it kind of looks like a mid-rangier ramp deck, but the way this deck played, like, you certainly ramped, but it was more just like almost as like a card advantage engine in the deck, where like you were just getting into like being able to play your Huntmaster of the Fells on turn 3, right? That's what you were ramping growthing for. So it wasn't like a ramp deck in the more traditional sense. I mean, people call it Wolfrun Ramp, so I guess in many ways it was a ramp deck, but really this was green-red control.
So looking at this, I wasn't playing during this time, but it looks like you're basically intending to play sort of a mid-rangey game, but you have this thing to go way over the top of what your opponents are doing in the Inkmoth Nexus Kessig Wolfrun sort of combo.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'm sure just casting Wolfrun plus mana plus whatever.
Plus
Yeah.
Right,
creature.
like Birds of
Yeah.
Paradise kill you. So, but in terms of like,
This is a deck that I put as it blurs the lines.
it makes sense because I would imagine you play a certain number of games where like you just play a Huntmaster and you just play like a lot of good value
There are
creatures.
games where you
and-
literally go turn 2 Rampant Growth, turn 3 Solemn, turn 4 Primeval Titan, good game.
Sure.
That was a ramp game, right? And then there are games where you go turn 2 Sphere of the Suns, turn 4 Huntmaster the Fells, turn 5 Pass, flip my Huntmaster the Fells, turn like
Galvanic Blast your guy,
Yeah.
attack for 4.
yes.
But that's often the sign of a powerful deck when you can sort of get people on either end. When both sides are working, when both sides are like valid in a format, it frequently means that the deck is great.
Yeah, so actually, of these decks, I think that I would guess that this deck and Valakut and Tron are the most well-known and best decks in their respective formats. This is the deck that I find the most beautiful. And it's kind of for the reasons that we just talked about. Casey kind of hit the nail on the head. This was actually green-red control, basically.
Right. But you certainly had a number of games, right, where you just kind of got to run all over whatever your opponent's doing.
Yeah.
It's just not close to good enough.
In a lot of ways, a lot of ramp decks play out like control decks. And I think that I might be wrong. Green-red Tron might just blur the lines too.
I think about like big jumps in mana, specifically in early turns of the game, creating insurmountable advantage as being a ramp specific thing.
Okay.
So when I see Tron being played, a lot of games are like turn 3 Karn, you have 2 lands in play. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
And a lot of like when Tron is good, it's because that kind of thing is good. When Tron is bad, it's because your opponent goes turn 1 Glistener Elf. You're playing a deck with no removal spells.
Yeah, and for me, when I see Tron, I don't see that.
So for me, with the thing that separates Tron for me and why it feels so different than a ramp deck is because of how much filtering, how much like trying to smooth out your own draws you do. Where in a ramp deck, like you'll keep 0 landers or whatever. Sometimes if it's the right mix, and because you can't mulligan. Or Tron, like you can totally mulligan as far as you need because the deck is so self-correcting.
That's one of my thoughts as well. It's funny that this turned into a talk about Tron because I actually expected it to be a talk about Wolfrun. And the reason that I expected it to be a talk about Wolfrun is just because of the beauty of the deck and how there is a world where you can have both worlds. It's just hard to come by. And the thing is that I think that both ways to play decks have deck building costs, right? Tron's deck building cost, kind of like Michael was saying, is Expedition Map.
You just have to. You're priced into playing a bunch of kind of cantrippy effects, right? Because like you really need to find these lands. Tron does not really. It's not really such a thing as a game Tron is going to win playing fair.
And for ramp decks, there are similar deck building costs, right? Like we specifically on like at for GP Portland, we spent our entire breakfast the day of trying to figure out like one slot in my deck. What bridge spell am I supposed to play in this slot? And if it's this bridge spell, am I supposed to play this? If it's this, am I supposed to play this? Because for one, you can only play the ramp spells that are in front of you, and they have to be good enough.
Right. I mean, I think some of it too is just like you're not going to win any games where you don't cast. You're not going to win a lot of games where you go like play 7 lands, play Dragonlord Atarka.
Yeah,
that's
right.
just
Your opponent
not
has to be
good
on
enough.
basically nothing for that to work, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I think that typically ramp decks are more powerful. Like you get there faster, but you're also more soft to disruption. Right? A Thought Seize or a counterspell is oftentimes better against the more rampy decks where the big mana deck's like, okay, you countered my Master of the Fells, here's Primeval Titan, or you countered my whatever. You Thought Seize my Slagstorm, but I still have Galvanic Blast to kill your guy.
When I look at Valakut Ramp, for example, this is literally the most linear deck I've ever seen. It actually doesn't even need prime. Like if you just went turn 1 Valakut, turn 2 Valakut, you could just win from there.
Sure, you just play lands and
Forest,
do
cultivate,
things and
get mountains.
I mean, so I would say that like Tron has the luxury of not quite having to be built like that, just because of the nature of the Tron lands. You can get so much mana out of so few actual resources, and it's relatively easy to find like one or two specific lands, which is all you end up needing.
Yeah.
That like it sort of gets the luxury of like also that Ancient Stirrings is just
Broken.
happens to be
It's an insane
ridiculous in the
card.
deck that's trying to both find lands and trying to find big colorless things to do with its lands. So it's sort of in a weird space, in just that like most other decks don't get to make similar choices that want to cast 7 mana spells.
What about the deck building cost of something like that 5-color control deck or Temur Emerge?
Like where you just decide you're gonna
What is the deck? But like when you're building a deck like this, like tomorrow, like you guys want to play Temur Emerge at the next Pro Tour, what are the deck building costs that you have to those decks versus the kind of deck building cost you might have for Ramp? For example, today we talked about Ruin in their wake. What is the deck building cost of playing that in a Ramp deck versus the deck building cost of playing Temur Emerge?
So, I mean, I think Temur Emerge specifically, it's sort of, honestly, it's oddly like the Ramp deck in that you get sort of priced into playing these sometimes good, sometimes not so good, 2, 3, 4 mana spells, right? You have to play like a bunch of Primal Druids and Pilgrim's Eyes, and there are times where you're going to wish you were playing more like on-curve removal spells, and instead, because you want to emerge Wretched Griff and set up all the, Kozilek's Return stuff or whatever, you have to play some cards that are kind of sketchy.
Yeah, calling Pilgrim's Eye kind of sketchy is like a pretty big understatement, right?
Right.
That's the card that I thought of when I thought of the deck building cost.
Right. And Primal Druid, too. I mean, Primal Druid is like sort of sometimes, it's good sometimes, but I would say it's kind of like playing Explosive Vegetation, right? It's like there are games where you're really excited you're casting Primal Druid, and there are games where you play Primal Druid and your opponent Reflector Mages it, and you're like, oh man.
Wait, there's
so
a
good.
game where you're not excited to cast Explosive Vegetation?
I mean, if your opponent is on the play and just like plays creatures and you're dying, Explosive Vegetation is like you kind of wish you had Languish, right? I mean, like we were looking at Ali's deck, right? So he gets to play control spells where you're casting Explosive Vegetation. Like there are going to be games where
both of Ollie's decks, right? We talked about 2 Ollie decks that were these big mana decks, right? Both the Sultai one and the 5-color deck, they played Languish and Supreme Verdict.
Right, they got to play like real premium removal where they were like control decks first, right? So you play these removal spells to get you to the late game, but their late game isn't like turn 4. I mean, you're playing Ramp, and like sometimes you're like, well, okay, I got to cast like a Dragon Lord of Tarka by turn 5, or I can't possibly win this
or
game.
I'll be dead to these 2/2s. Yeah, that can certainly happen. With the Ramp deck, like, your deck building cost is staggering. Your whole deck is super... You've got lands, ramp spells, payoffs. That's it. That's the deck. Where with these big mana decks, you can play quite the spectrum, right? Like, you can play a Disfigure and a Languish and, whatever goes in your deck to sort of get you from point A to point B to point C to point D. You're not, like...
Yeah,
not
there
bound
are
by your
multiple
opener.
points. I think just like A to B to C to D is a good point, right? Because like you actually have a plan for progressing through multiple stages of the game that isn't just like, okay, point A is make my point D a lot closer. Point D, kill you.
Yeah, one thing that I'm when, for example, Ishkana in Ollie's deck, like that's a bridge spell in his deck. It's basically Thragtusk in his deck.
Sure.
So there's huge differences. So what matchups, kind of matchups, not just specific matchups, but what kind of matchups would you rather play a big meta deck versus a ramp deck?
So the ramp decks are typically good versus sort of the mid-rangey decks, even more than the big mana decks are, just because you're playing so many more haymakers. Like, if your opponent is playing Siege Rhino and you're playing Ulamog, they're going to have a bad time.
I would also say that the ramp decks are typically better against the control decks for the same reason, and for the reason that the big mana decks often just like you do something and the control deck can decide whether they care about it or not. And also, historically, like you just, it feels like you get got. Like, you can just stumble easy with these big mana decks versus control decks, because the control deck's going to have a very, like, the control deck's going to have a late game like the ramp deck, right?
Where, the cards are just so much better. Sphinx's Revelation for 7. Like,
Yeah. Whereas
Boom,
the
game
big
over.
mana decks are going to specifically the reason. So Ali decks are not always a great example of this,
because they're usually control decks that are kind of big mana decks.
right? But a lot of times, what you'll find is like I have these big mana decks, but I'm not fast enough to pull to the point where like I can beat the control deck. Like, I'm not fast enough to beat the control deck before, like, we're at the same point in the game.
Right.
So then I'm just, like, a bad control deck in the control mirror.
That, like, a single Farseek is just not speeding you up enough to
Right.
really, like, they still have, Sphinx's Revelation or Cryptic Command or whatever by
Yeah,
the time
exactly.
you're
Whatever
casting
they're
your big
doing.
stuff.
And that's a huge downside of the big mana control decks. But the big mana decks get to play things like, Supreme Verdict and Languish.
They're typically better against the,
The
lower
medium.
end of the formats.
Yeah, so specifically, I actually think it's very specific. They're good against, like, the medium decks. Like, the green-white aggros. Not, like, the mono-red aggros. I actually think ramp decks are, like, fine against hyper-aggressive decks. But against those medium decks where, like, something like Jaughty Offshoot's, like, really bad. Like, you just are bad against those decks, whereas these big mana decks are very good against those decks and the aggro decks.
Yeah, and like as far as aggro specifically, it really depends on the specifics of both the aggro deck and the ramp deck, right? Like Naya Blitz, just as like a standard deck, would have been pretty good against like most of the ramp decks that have ever existed, right? Just because they like your kill turn was the same turn that they were getting their Primeval Titan, and the Primeval Titan was good, but like if it couldn't save them,
Yeah, one of the problems that I have with the statement is just the fact that, like, those decks had Pyroclasm back then.
sure.
So, like, historically, the ramp decks are good against aggro decks because of things like Pyroclasm, Slagstorm, Whipflare.
Well, a lot of the time, if they're not good against the aggro decks, they just don't exist in the format, right? I mean,
Right.
if you can't beat, like, the random aggressive stuff, no one plays them.
But ramp decks are historically bad against, like, medium decks that aren't quick medium decks.
Yeah, the decks that play 4/4s for 4 or 3 or whatever that like don't die to Pyroclasm.
Yeah, like, just these, like... So, specifically, ramp decks are bad against, like, Hero of Blade Holds. Like, this card is not an aggro card. It's not a mid-range card. It's just this medium, annoying... It's actually my least favorite card ever printed, for those who don't know. And the reason that it's so good is, like, you just play it on the turn that, like, they're playing a Titan, and then... you die in 2 turns, and they also die in 2... Like, you're at the same point in the game, even though I spent all this time getting to this point in the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and also like if they did any mana beating you down, or they
Exactly, so they do
they
something
could
about-
have removal or
Yeah.
whatever, and then
They do some amount of beating you down, and then they, like, play this, and you're like, well, nothing in my deck kills this.
Yeah, Gideon does a reasonable impression of
Yeah,
this.
actually, Gideon is the perfect example of that other one, right?
Well, people would say that, right? It's like ramp decks don't really have a bad matchup, but they're horrible against Gideon.
Yeah. Actually, green-white was a good matchup for you if they specifically didn't play Gideons, right?
And if they were on the play and like did anything into Gideon, you were basically dead.
Yeah, and the reason is, like, these medium spells, they're just awkward. Like Bloodbraid Elf, for example. would
You have to
probably
play
be-
actual removal spells, not just like a small sweeper to clean them up, right?
Exactly.
It's like you need to answer them generally on like a 1-for-1 basis, and decks that can do that and then go over the top of them handle
Right.
that stuff really easily.
And the big mana decks could, like, I mean, you could just play Runus Path in your deck. Just be like, get out of
Right,
here,
sure.
Gideon.
Right, you kill this creature threat, and then you play something bigger and stabilize the game, whatever. But like, that's just part of the cost of playing a ramp deck, right? Like, you're just not going to have as many flexible slots. You sort of get locked into, and I mean, sometimes even like the payoffs can almost end up being costs, right? Because like, you can't build a deck with a bunch of explosive vegetations and then be like, yeah, I'm going to play like 2 Ulamogs and nothing else because you have to draw them by like turn 5.
Yeah, otherwise you're just gonna die to anything basically. So, yeah, there's with ramp, your deck building cost is basically your entire deck, right? Like, you have to. It's all part of one plan. There's no segue. Like, you're trying to get to a lot of mana, cast something that costs a lot of mana. That's it. That's the game. If either of those things, if that doesn't happen, you're going to lose. Where these big mana decks can dirtle around for quite a while, right? Play honest Magic for quite some time.
Yeah, I completely agree. Any final thoughts on this? Like, I think that we've defined that there's some blurring of the lines, and I think that it gets confusing for people, right? And also, I was hoping, and we didn't do this, thanks, Michael, to break the stigma that is ramp decks.
It comes down to personal. It comes down to just what you like most things in life, right? If you like playing ramp decks, they're good. I mean, people win with them. If you don't like playing them, don't feel like you have to unless it's the best deck.
That's certainly not what I... Actually, that's the perfect thing to say. Unless unless you have a reason to play it. For example, I don't like playing... I didn't like Grey Merchant Asphodel decks. But, yeah, I played some Grey Merchant Asphodel decks in my day.
If you decide it's a lot better, right? Like, there's a point where something can be so much better that you just, like, are making yourself miserable by not playing it. Because, like, even though... It feels bad to play something bad because you decide you're just not going to play a deck, right? Like, I just don't want to play Grey Merchant, so I'm going to play something that I know is going to get spanked in this matchup, and it's what's happening.
Yeah, like, I usually need a pretty big convincing to play a ramp deck. I have to think that it's really going to be the best deck for the tournament.
You've literally ever played a big mana deck?
I've played a few, but not very often. But when I play... Either way, though, I have to be completely certain that it's the best deck for the tournament. Because both of them kind of lend themselves to games that I'm not a big fan of. But I think that if it's... like, the fact that it's not a deck you like is not a good reason to not play it if you're trying to win the event.
Yeah, and just think of things this way. Like, look at things like Temur Emerge or... like Wolfrun Ramp. Like, these decks, they ended up bringing pretty sweet decks, right? Like, those two decks specifically, when I look at these lists of decks, are like the decks that I think are like actually sweet decks. And so there's a stigma that people put behind all kinds of things. There's a stigma behind aggro decks. There's a stigma behind control decks. And the thing that you need to learn from this is there are certain things about certain decks that make them good in certain areas. And these decks aren't any different than that. You know, a lot of people think that people who play aggro are bad. But I promise you that, like, Tom Ross is not a bad Magic player. And that these style of decks are no different. And these styles of decks are different. And they're not the same thing. You know, this 5-color control deck is not a ramp deck. And this Valakt Ramp deck is not a big mana deck. They have very unique identities, and they also probably have very different styles of like gameplay and matchups.
I think generally when people are like, "Oh, don't play ramp because all ramp players are stupid," or "Don't play aggro because like you're just it's just cheese or whatever," like people just say that when they lose because they want to minimize the idea that their choices had any impact on the game.
Exactly.
It's just salt, just whatever. People will always find something to complain about. It does not matter like what deck you play, right? I mean, it's like if you play Miracles, I could literally name a deck across like every archetype people whine about it. So whatever.
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening this week. Don't forget to check out the Patreon at patreon.com/ccmtg. You can become a patron of the show and really help us create more content and do some awesome stuff. Where can people find you, Casey?
On Facebook at Casey Tuna Bloodworth or on Twitter at CC Bloodthirst.
Michael?
You can find me on Facebook, Michael Hinderocker, in the Facebook group, or on Twitter at MagicMikeMTG.
You can find me on Twitter at Spencer13H. You can find me on Facebook at Spencer Stephen Howland. You can find me on MTGO at Spencer13Dev. And you can join the conversation every week by going to Twitter and tweeting with hashtag Would That Be Good. You can go to the Reddit page at reddit.com/r/ccmtg. We posted it because people asked for it. I don't think it's ever been used since like the week it happened. But if you want to, I check it every week. So if you are a Redditor and want to start the Reddit conversation, reddit.com/r/ccmtg. Where most of the listeners are is on Facebook. You can join the Facebook group. Just ask for an invite, and I'd be happy to invite you. We'd be happy to have everybody be a part of that. It is a huge deal to us. And thank you so much to all of the entire Facebook group. It makes my day to see that grow and become the community that it is now. You can also join the clan by messaging me at Spencer13H Spencer13Dev on MTGO and Earthstripe at URSTRYPE. I forgot the H.
And the T.
Yeah.
I don't even know how that happened.
URTHSTRYPE.
There you go.
Just spell Earthstripe as poorly as you can.
I don't
You'll
even
figure it
know
out.
why I mess it up every time. I think it's just a mental block now. What did you learn on the podcast this week?
I learned about what you guys think. It was interesting to just talk about like what defines ramp in your mind. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, certainly.
It is, and I think that there are decks that blur the lines, like absolutely. And I think that it was actually funny when I was doing this. I was like, I'm really excited to talk about Wolfrun Ramp as a ramp deck, and then like as I was looking at the deck, I'm like, this deck like isn't really a ramp deck.
It makes sense, right? Like you would have hands where I'm sure it felt like a ramp deck.
There were so many games where it was a ramp deck.
It had like ramp curves, but then it didn't have like the volume, right? I mean, I'm sure there were games where you went like rampant growth, solemn, primeval time, but you're only playing like 4 rampant growths and 3 solemns. Not like most of your games are 2, 4, 6.
Yeah, and then the next game you would play, Galvanic Blast your guy.
Yeah.
Sphere of the Suns.
You would play a game where you went animate 2 of my Ink Buff Nexuses. I have a Sphere of Suns and play blast you, blast you, blast you. You're dead.
But that's what makes it fun to play Magic in general, right? Like you can win games in weird ways sometimes.
Casey, what did you learn this week?
Kind of similar to Michael, just that the approach to sort of the definition of some things in Magic, where we're all pretty close. We have the same idea as like what a ramp deck is, but where the lines blur is different. Because like going into this, I definitely would not consider Tron to be a ramp deck, but the fact that like it's very firmly in ramp in Michael's mind doesn't mean that either of us are wrong. It's just like the way that we define those archetypes is very different.
And also maybe the reason that we don't think of it is, and like it was funny because like I wanted to make a point on this podcast that it wasn't, but that's not really the approach that I should have taken. Instead, I should have taken the approach that like, what is it? What should we define it as? And it might be one of those decks that really does blur the lines. So, especially considering other Tron decks, he does consider big decks.
Yeah, I mean, Sylvan Scrying just. To me, that's crossing the line.
That's the breaking
point. You play
point.
Sylvan Scrying and it's over. You can't tell me you're trying to win a fair game of Magic anymore. There's nothing
evidence to
good-natured
suggest that.
about Tron. Nothing good-natured.
All right, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you guys all next week.
Magic, magic,